All right. Welcome, everybody, to week 3, the Accomplice Saboteurs. Anytime we've got a judge, we often have an accomplice that's come along with it. Any negative feeling, look for the judge and then ask, who else has teamed up with this character to take me away from my sage brain, right? And interesting week, lots of material. If you listen to all 9 weeks, it's an hour and a half.
Oh, you mean online saboteurs?
Right, all 9 saboteurs, right? Oh my gosh, they just go on and on, and a lot to remember, but just focus on your two and it's not so bad. And we're going to want to know how things went looking at your judge, and then we'll dive more into what you're discovering about the saboteurs. But let's get in our higher brains first. Theresa.
All right. So I was thinking we're going to do a little different kind of sage braining today. I want you to take a breath in and I want you to find a pen near your desk. Got it? Excellent. I love it. Here's what I'm going to have you do. Move away so you can do it. And I just want you to flip your pen and see if you can catch it. Just flip and catch. Flip and catch. Yeah, flip and catch. And you might not be able to. Nice. John's already laughing. Up, up. Oh, right on out of my hand. Nice. Flip and catch. Ooh. Matt. Ooh, other hand. Or you can flip it and catch it in the up. Oh, nope, maybe not. Awesome. All right. I want you to look at the screen and all the people flipping and laughing at trying to catch a pen. This creates a kind of endorphin because you're like, oh, I'm going to try, I'm going to try, I'm going to try. Let's see if I can do it. Oh, I didn't do it, or oh, I did it. It changed your brain from that. I got to do it. I got to be here. We all get used to sage brain in the calm way. But guess what, y'all? Sage brain can be in the active way too. There is something that we came up with, Sage Bypass, a few years ago. And then I did a conference a couple weeks ago on high speed sage. So it's not that on the mountaintop sage all the time, because guess what, y'all? That's not always possible, right? If your saboteurs are all up in your head and in your grill, sometimes the thing, you know what I'm saying? Like and I've seen people try to PQ rep when they're upset and it looks more like this. And that might be a call out for more of a high speed sage, like something to get you active into your sage. So is this kind of resonating in a different way? Sometimes the and the meditation and the rubbing and the calming, there's a place for it. But there's also a place for something like a pen flip. I am so freaking frustrated right now. Okay, I caught that. Like I can't even think about whatever I was frustrated about because I'm concentrating on flipping a stupid pen. And then my stupid thing just became like, oh, what was it, that thing I was worried about? Oh yeah, I forgot. So I want you guys to think about that as you're going through this program this time. More sage ways that might be kind of active. And in that way, it's like an activator.
Cool. I like that. That's like, it reminds me of my kittens, of course. I distract them with waving something around, and then they're totally mesmerized and following that. And whatever they were fighting with each other, they were in their saboteurs. And I get them into their little sage brains.
Dude, I'm the same. If you did this
So,
with a string in front of me, I would be like this too. And if it was shiny, oh my God. Or the red light, yes. But it's sage. It's just a different level of sage
right,
than
right.
we've quite talked about before.
Isn't that just a way of staying in a state of play, of playfulness?
Sure.
In a
You
way,
know?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Or it's kind of like states of joy. And when we get a little further into the program, Shirzad's going to talk about supercharging your sage brain by going to town with joy, whatever that
yeah,
is. So I've been
yeah.
like spending spending 15 minutes listening to music, dancing around to get myself in a totally different energy, a totally different space. Yeah.
I do that when when I'm playing golf, and then from many times from the green back to the cart, I'll balance my putter and trying to walk back to the cart, balancing it the whole way, and because the terrain's go like this, and it's getting out of the seriousness of, oh, was that a bad shot or something, and into just playfulness, and gets me kind of regrounded back into this is fun. Yeah, so little things. I like that playful attitude, because I think I probably play more than I do anything else.
Which is perfect, right? And I think in the we've been taught that it has to be the Zen on the mountain. Why couldn't it be playfulness to get you into sage activation? Why couldn't it be something fun or funny?
Yeah, hallelujah.
A game.
So I'm really curious what everybody's week with the judge was like, having gone through this before, and here you did it again. What was different this time in putting your emphasis on the judge? What did you notice? I'm just curious. Let's go around. David, do you want to go first?
I just, when I think back on it, oddly enough, I was trying to identify with the judge, because it's been pretty quiet and able to, I guess maybe I'm PQ'd up or something. I don't know. It just like I'm able to identify much, much quicker, and able to just like be completely at peace with, oh yeah, that's the judge. He's just kind of judging, and it's like it's no big deal. I don't seem to get hijacked as much, I guess, anymore. I have other things that hijack me, but not so much the judge anymore. Yeah, it's only my restlessness is the only thing that hijacks me. So, which is actually fun in itself.
So Shirzad this week is saying that even restlessness is first the judge and then restlessness adds. So it's like a judgment perhaps of, oh, this is boring, and then restless comes along. Something like, see if, I don't know, just an idea.
I never thought of it that way.
What is the judge that then gets joined by my restlessness?
I guess this week I've been more in a kind of a love affair with myself, I guess, because it's like loving every little, like when I look at my little list of me, I'm restless and I'm a pleaser and kind of all the avoider and all that stuff, and I like it. It's like I like the avoider because it is the peacefulness and stuff, and I like the fact that there's the contrast to it. That then maybe the judge can come in and say, hey, let's not do that, and they'll, hey, hold on, judge, let's go give some stickler, and it's like you can start bringing these guys in and using the strengths, and then when they're starting to use their negatives, and you just kind of, okay, you can sit down now, and it's just kind of more of a, I don't know, it's just been very, very pleasurable, actually.
Neat. Yeah. I love that.
I love the idea of that's enough out of you. All right, we got what we wanted.
Thank you.
Hyperachiever is like, okay, we got some achieving done. Now, you're veering over to hyper. Go ahead and sit down now.
And now we hear from Zimbabwe.
Yes. Like a orchestra conductor, you're pointing at.
Yeah, almost exactly.
Calm down, up over here. Beautiful.
Isn't that interesting?
All right.
Shut the hell up.
Tracy, what are you noticing as you take a sip?
And specific to the judge, I had to really think about this because I'm so far into the Saboteurs, and that's where my mind is right now, that I'm like, I should be taking notes throughout the week to remember all these things. But a few things that I did grasp at. I wasn't always catching the judge right in the moment, but I may have caught it later in the day. Maybe it was a daily focus or something. So my celebration may have been a little delayed, but I would still celebrate catching maybe an earlier judge of that day. So still a success. And then one thing I was kind of catching on the judge of circumstance, and I think that was Thanksgiving Day. So I didn't have a lot of time to really dive into that, but daydreaming of positive things versus judge of circumstance. It's like, am I judging my circumstance, or am I just wishing for good things? So I'm still kind of playing around with that a little bit. For example, I am constantly on Zillow looking at apartments in New York City, constantly, all the time. Which I think is like a dream of mine. It is a goal of mine. So I don't think I'm using it as a judge of circumstance. Like, I would be happier if I lived in New York. It's just a goal and a dream, I think.
Tune into how you feel. right? Judges and saboteurs leave a negative residual feeling. So if you're going on to Zillow and feeling angst about what is and about your time here, I wish I were in New York City. It'd be so much better than this and blah, 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 blah. I can't stand it here the whole time. Then you're in judgment. If you're there and you're dreaming and you're going, oh, that would be so much fun. And then where would I want to live? And what would it be? That's all positive inside of you. There's no.
I think that's where I'm at. Think it is, I think it is mostly positive. I'm sure I probably could go there in certain times, but yeah, I think right now it's mostly positive. Okay.
Great. That's something that fills the joy bucket. So,
A daydream. It's a daydream. What would it look like if this happened?
like that. Danny, what are you noticing about your judge this week?
My judge is habitual. That's what I really noticed. When something upsets me, bavoom, I'm judging it. And I've caught myself over and over and over again. It's like having your knee hit in the doctor's office and your leg jumps. I mean, it's been that habitual. Whenever I'm hurt, I judge. Whenever I'm upset, first thing that comes out of me, that goddamn can be in the car when I'm driving. It can be when I'm watching television. I mean, I've just noticed, and that's been the good thing about this, is that I've begun to see how much I live in habit. And so just becoming conscious of the habit, I've become generally more conscious. So that this has been a big reward for me this week. It's been like the area in which I am just unaware. And so as I bring it to consciousness and have to focus on the judge, I'm just seeing more and more places where I go on automatic pilot. I'm not present. My habitual responses are present. So it's been an interesting week. Oh my goodness. Yes.
And think of it this way. Judgment is good, bad, right, wrong. And then I post in the chat, a saboteur will go, yeah, and this. It'll start flavoring it. But anytime the people in front of us driving are jerks, we're in judgment. And then your stickler's like, and I've got to get there on time. Or do they not understand rules of the road?
Exactly.
So the judgment, right, wrong, good, bad, that's the first piece of it. And David, you posted in the chat, if it feels bad, is it a lie? No, not necessarily. I mean, my appendix would feel bad if it was hurt, if there was something wrong with it. I'd cancel the thought. But and that would be a sign to go do something with it. It would be a sign to get into my sage brain or get neutral.
But at some point, like if you know what it is, it's your appendix, you're getting it taken care of, then you could have saboteur spin out of that and judgment. Like, I should be over this by now. I took the medication. This isn't right. And that's where the lies start.
And the suffering. The lie is the suffering.
Yep.
Good. Thank you, Denny.
Cindy, what'd you notice about your judge this time?
So this was a particularly hectic week, in a lot of good ways. So I'm judging myself right now that I didn't spend a whole lot of time thinking about my judge last week. And just what it is. I did a little bit, but certainly not to the extent that others in here probably have done. So
how do you know?
I was going to say, I said probably. I justified that a little. that. So last week, Rick and Theresa know, was my 68th birthday. So I did spend some time thinking about what does 68 mean, because I sure don't feel it. I don't think I look it. I'm not going to own it at this point, except I am going to own it because I mean, what a wonderful celebration to be alive and thriving and all of that. So, um, very long story short, with all of that, I think most of my judging stuff has been processing that this week and then having wonderful celebrations with family and friends all week long. Um, from birthday through Thanksgiving, so up through yesterday. So um, I did judge my gambling a little bit, Rick. Didn't do so well this time. And was a little judgmental with myself about that I should have just walked away. But anyhow, it was playful and fun and learned a lot about it. So wasn't too harsh on myself with that. So, and all within what was doable. So,
No, I tried something different this time, which was celebrating losing.
did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was like, whoa, oh, that was fun. Because
Yeah.
it's fun, the winning and losing with gambling. So,
Yeah, I certainly celebrated. Wow, I just played for 4 hours and I only lost $100. That's not bad.
Wow.
that's great.
Yeah, exactly. So
Lots
anyway,
of points earned.
yeah, exactly. We already have the comps coming. So
Right,
yeah.
right.
So that was our week. It was just kind of not just. It was an exciting week. It was a hectic week. There honestly wasn't a lot of time just to myself um, to really contemplate things, and I did make sure that I was doing a lot of PQ reps in a variety of kinds of situations. One of the things I've started doing a lot is using a particular hand lotion that I like that just smells so good. It just wakes me up and feels so good. And it's kind of a reward to myself to just, yeah, boy, I'm just feeling it. I'm just feeling it. It feels so good. And to really get into that. And that helps to pull me back in. So
Great. Thank you, Cindy. That's a great sage
yeah.
step. You should add that one. Lotion that you like or smells that you like. We talked about, I think in a couple weeks ago, essential oils. So smelling something that you enjoy work past the blood-brain barrier. So it's a good sage step. Cool.
Don, what was your week with your judge like?
Well, the first time around when I took this, and it wasn't very long ago, really, I didn't think that it was the program itself was emphasized, or I didn't pick it up, or it was maybe said differently this time, right? So to me, this practice on the judge part for me is kind of new because I was more focused on like the saboteurs, not the judge, which obviously is the biggest saboteur, but I was more focused, like I said, on the other 9, right? So my judge itself this is fairly new. It's for me, it was hard for me to put the two together when I had a negative thought and knowing that it was my judge or being able to put it together. So, and being able to celebrate and do all of those things. So catching the judge for me was tough. Even though it's kind of pounded in your head every day. And then in the 1 hour session every week, you kind of get that for the week, right? And that's what you're supposed to focus on. But it's difficult for me to remember to put those practices, whatever it may be, like obviously this week the judge, put those practices into my daily life. But that's why we're doing this stuff, right? That's why we're doing the class. That's why we're doing this. So yeah. Again, I think it was a little bit more emphasized this time, or I caught it differently, or I listened to it differently this time, which helped me. So don't have a lot of good feedback on interacting with the two, but I know it's there. I just got to remember to do it. Yeah.
I
And
like
remember,
negative. I like negative emotion as an alarm to bring my attention to the judge. Because when I'm not, that's the hard thing when you're doing this program. If you're not having a lot of negative emotion, it's really difficult to spot your judge. Like, where is it? Because it's not there, right? So just notice your emotional state, and when something feels off, ask yourself: what am I judging? Am I judging myself? Am I judging someone else? Am I judging circumstance? And then who else is there? Which other saboteur is joining in?
I really like the judge of circumstance because that's really kind of my big one, I think, right? I try not to judge other people. And well, judge of circumstance or myself, I think is probably the biggest one. But you can kind of intertwine all of those together as well, right? You can either judge a circumstance or the person causing the circumstance, I think. I don't know. So a little bit new to me yet, but actively on it, which is awesome.
anytime something shouldn't be, there's judgment. It shouldn't be this way. I shouldn't feel this way. They shouldn't act this way. That shouldn't be happening. That's judgment. The shoulds are all judgment. And I would even go as far as to say the have tos might be as well. Right?
It's
Have to means I have to do this even though I don't want to.
it's just catching it and putting it into practice for me.
Mhm. So look
Right.
for those places where things are good, bad, right, wrong, should, shouldn't,
Okay.
Have to, must,
have
ought
tos.
to.
It's not fairs.
Thank you, Don. Justin, what did you notice about your judge?
Well, this was an odd week for me. I was out of my normal element and I was in New York City since Tuesday night. And I've lived there for 16 years in the late 80s and through the 90s and a little bit spillover into the 2000s. And I noticed more than anything else, a lot of old feelings and habits would bust into the door when dealing with large crowds of people. Thanksgiving Day was great. There were a lot of people, but I was in the parade and it was fine. And I mean, I loved it. And there was a lot of before the parade, we had to get down at this place to get our costumes on, and it was a lot of craziness, a lot of people, and some of the anxiety of being around so many people at once that are being all frenetic started to come in, but I, looking back, dealt with that very well. A lot of yes anding, and when that would come up and other things during the week with crowds, there would initially be, this rigidity, and I noticed it coming, and it was old habits. You get around an environment that you were in for so long, you notice how much you've changed. And I really noticed that. And it helped me ease through a lot of the anxiety, but a lot of that social anxiety still came up. We went and saw a play. We got out. Took forever for the theater to leave there, on Broadway. And everyone came out and just stood there on the sidewalk. They stopped and they just stood there, this mob of people. And I started getting very angry, like, why are they not moving? And forcing us to walk out into the street where the cars are coming. And that, so judge right there, started judging them, like, what's wrong with these people, yada, yada, yada. And then when those things would come up, basically, I didn't get into a lot of the work, a lot of the mechanisms of the PQ, but I remember just shifting into compassion, and that helped me calm all that judge down and come up with some reason why they're doing what they're doing. And a lot of the times it was a big, a lot of people walking down the sidewalk coming my way. Nobody would move. I was always the one that had to move, to shift, to get out of everybody's way. that got frustrating. But then, you notice it, you just let it go. And that I never did do when I lived there. I would hold on to all that anger. And at the end of the day, I was furious all the time. I didn't really know why. And that, it was little things like that. So I noticed a big change in how I deal with all that. But a lot of the anxieties were still, it was trying to make me into the person I used to be when I lived there back in the 90s or whatever. Yeah, because your environment, your back, it's the weather, it's the big buildings. Oh, I know this. I can be grumpy pants, uh, but yeah, it was just really great to notice the shifts in how this started to affect me, and I stepped away from it very quickly, many times during the day.
Beautiful. I'd never considered that going back to different places that you'd been earlier in your life could bring you back and display just how much you've changed, and noticing all the old triggers. That's
it was really interesting. I recommend it.
Yeah. Wonder what I'd noticed if I went back and hung out in Sacramento after all these years being here. Interesting. Yeah. I like that. Thank you, Justin. Nicole, what did you notice about your judge last week?
What I noticed, and this is funny because Theresa, you just said this, but what I noticed is I have keywords. So should is one of them. And so we moved last week, right? So I'm, in Box City and surrounded by boxes. And I have to keep reminding myself, you know what? I've been packing for 9 months. Like, I can't expect myself to be unpacked in 2 days. Like, this is not realistic, right? Anyway, but if I start having that thought, oh, I should be unpacking, I should be unpacked, I should be, all the shoulds, right? What I've been doing as, I suppose, as my PQ for that judgment is switching the should to I'm choosing to. So I've been, instead of saying I should be unpacking boxes, I'll say I'm choosing to sit here and look out my window and look at my neighbor's Christmas lights. I'm choosing to take 5 minutes to relax. I'm choosing to do, whatever the alternative to the should is. And then from there, it's like, okay, now I'm choosing to unpack a box. I'm choosing to, clean up the kitchen. I'm choosing whatever. But I've noticed the keywords that I'm using to shift that.
Nice.
Keep in mind,
Keywords.
keywords for each of you, your judge will use different words. Your judge, and then it'll get flavored by your saboteurs. Exactly what Nicole was saying. Like, what is it saying? What's it putting out there?
Yeah. Our judge hashtags.
Oh my God, I'm so adding that to our notes. That's awesome.
Thank you, Nicole.
Tracy, did you go?
Yep.
Okay, good.
We've
Everybody went. All right,
completed our rounds.
that's why you run the.
All
That's why you
around
run the
Brady
rounds, my
Bunch
friend.
circle.
So at this point, usually I will mention one of our participants who, every time she felt powerless, judged. Whether it was tech, whether it was someone else, it didn't matter. The minute that she felt a powerlessness or a helplessness, judgment. It shouldn't be this way. I shouldn't feel this way. And then would get angry, right? And we talked about it, I think, last time too, as that anger would then move into some kind of action, but usually, or not, right? Like, or you'd stick around and swirl in that anger. So noticing when the specific times are that you feel like judgment happens, and what hashtags they use, what words they use, that judge.
Now we got to dive into the saboteurs. And I don't know, I really liked this time that instead of saboteurs being all painted in a negative light, Shirzad has redefined a saboteur as the over expression of your superpower or your gift. And that's a really wonderful way to welcome in being aware of saboteurs instead of, oh, this awful thing, like, oh, my propensity for get along, go along, and creating peace and connection with people used too much of that energy becomes the avoider, right? And I avoid conflict in order to maintain the peace and then end up with a bigger conflict down the road. And same thing with that people pleaser, that wonderful, empathetic, caring, able to sense into other people's needs. And it's this wonderful, beautiful power. I love that aspect of myself. And at the same time, it can go too far. It result in overgiving, result in not giving to myself, not allowing my own needs to be met. So it just really interesting, the idea that everything has a superpower gone awry. And I think it all, for me, takes me right back to the Enneagram, where we're talking about strengths and weaknesses of all the Enneagram types. And all of these are really, saboteurs are the negative aspects of the 9 personality types. One area that I think he didn't spend a lot of time on gifts. If anybody here is the victim, I don't know, maybe I missed him raving about the gifts of the victim voice. But victims are incredibly creative, in finding their victimization, but it's that uniqueness, that out of the box, that super creativity, that artfulness is that same energy put in a positive way. I mean, they are the poets and the singers and the story writers and the actors. They have that beautiful energy to them that at the same time can go down that interesting victim path. Theresa, what did you notice different?
And he's going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the sage steps for each saboteur, which is so much fun. If you didn't have a chance to listen, oh my God, I had a fellow PQ coach who outlined each of them. And for me, I realized how many of my goals were grounded in saboteurs. If I do a big speech or workshop, I'm like, well, only 15 people were there, or only 350 people. Like, I only a number. My saboteurs, it's a great goal, right? To do these big things and to do all this stuff in the world and have things happening. But some of those goals are actually grounded in saboteurs. And I started calling them out after we did this. I'm in a big group. I coach a group of positive intelligence coaches across the world. And I'm like, yeah, but, and the people are like, oh, yeah, it was such a great meeting. And I'm like, yeah, but only blank people showed up. And they're like, yep, there she is again. There's that hyperachiever with the number. I didn't realize how many of my goals started there. They might actually be saboteur related goals. And instead of focusing on, and for hyperachiever, it's more like, what would make this compelling? Hyperachievers tend to enjoy the end. And then the rub is you don't even get the hit. Like, you complete a thing thinking you're going to feel a certain way as having hyperachiever, but then you don't even get that thing. And then you just keep going. The carrot just keeps moving down the road. And the carrot is set up by the saboteur. And so for me, it started to be about, well, what can I do to just enjoy this process? What can I look at to make this fun? To David's point about, what if it's like a child? What would make this more interesting? Like if I was at Nicole's house, I'd be like, all right, 5 minutes. I'm going to see how many boxes I can move in 5 minutes. Like, that to me would be a game where my hyperachiever would be like, I can't do it all. I'm done. There's too much. If I can't do it all, I'm not doing any of it. And so realizing all those different places.
And, all the different sage steps for each of the different ones, all familiar things that I've heard before in the teachings that I've listened to through the years. It's like, enjoy the goal is not the goal, it's the path. That whole concept, be present to the moment, Give to yourself like you would give to others. It's like each of those was something I've told clients that has existed in me for 20, 30 years. I'm still having trouble associating each with each of the nine different steps with the nine different ones. I've heard it 3 times now and they're not sticking, but I'll figure that out. Theresa, do you have the whole list?
I do. I was looking for it. Hold on. I was downloading it. Yes. Do you want me to where did it go? Here we go. I do. Do you want me to share it? What do you want me to do
Yeah,
with it?
let's run through it.
All right. Let me share screen. Hopefully, I know if you guys are on an iPhone, it's going to be a little harder to see. And this is not zhuzhed up. This is like the PQ coaches are going through it, and we had to create it because Shirzad hasn't actually created this, so we did this. Make that go away. Can you guys see part of it? Some of it?
Yeah.
I'm going to open it, make it bigger. All right. So there you go.
Right. So controller, what would make this more of a pull rather than a push? Hyperachiever, how could I detach from the outcome and make the journey more compelling?
Ooh, 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 or fun.
Yeah, right. Avoider, what's the small step I can take right now? Hypervigilant, where does it fit into that vigilance grid? And you only take action if it's something that you have high control of and it's high probability, and the rest are all invitations to accept. That's an easy way to remember the grid. The hyper rational, name the feeling: happiness, sadness, fear, anger, disgust, surprise. So labeling the emotion is the key. And the pleaser, what would please me first? Making sure that your needs get met. Restless, do PQs on what is right in front of you. Become more present. Come into the moment. The stickler, is this in the 20% bucket? Then stay in sage and make it perfect. Or if this is in the 80% bucket, let it be good enough. Let good enough be good enough. And victim, what is the image you can bring to mind that gives you a loving hug? That emphasis on self-love. So I think of that antidote to victim is a little bit of heart math. For those of you that know the heart math technique, remembering a loving experience, what love feels like, and generating that in your heart.
So note these for this week, heart mathing yourself. And I'll download this document and send it, but take a note of what yours is. And if it's the one I think that's probably the most confusing is hypervigilant, which is honestly worry. 85% of what we worry about never happens. So is this actually happening? Would be one of the other questions. Is there something right now, or am I worrying about something in the future? Because hypervigilance will tend to spin in that worst case scenario. So am I making something up? Or is this an actual thing? And then you can sort of deal with it. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Like, is it imaginary or is it real? If it's real, yes, I'm concerned about this. Then what are the steps I could take? If it's imaginary, then there might be other steps I could take. But you have to determine that first too.
Right. Or are there even steps you can take? So
Oh,
much
yeah.
hypervigilance is that first box on the quadrant, like at low risk and there's nothing you can do about it. And that occupies huge portions of people's brains.
I think about that when someone who has a fear of flying gets on an airplane. Dude, you can't control. Like, imagine feeling helpless and hopeless, and you can't control the plane. So it's like this awful setup to be just like spinning. And I think oftentimes phobias will fall under that same thing.
Well, as Justin was explaining, everybody pouring out of the theater onto the street, my hypervigilance just started to go with all the, I could feel the feeling inside of me going, oh no, if there were a fire, or if something horrible were to happen and people could get trampled, and what's the odds of that actually happening here? And where does that actually fall? And what do I have control over? I'd probably move myself out of the center and towards the side and be aware and just glance back at where the exits are in the back of the theater and then surrender.
As a self-defense expert, I would highly recommend that. You get your back against the wall so you can see everything, and then you can actually determine what your next steps might be.
So, Theresa, which of these 3 questions should we ask?
I like the first one. In case you don't know what we're talking about yet.
Right.
First or the second one?
Okay. Let's see. So, what are your top 2 saboteurs costing you when it comes to your well-being, your relationships, your performance?
Your life.
Yeah, what impact would it have on you if you could reclaim the strengths of your saboteur?
And you know what? Since these guys are sage anyway, I'm going to post both questions and you pick one. You guys can pick which question you want to
combine the 2.
Yeah, or both. Like, what are your top saboteur or your top 2? It doesn't matter. The whole process is once you learn how to deal with one saboteur, then the others are more natural. But if you try to deal with all of them at once, it's too much. I've had people read off all 5 of their top 5 and like, okay, dude, seriously, stop. Like you can deal with 1, maybe 2. So pick your first or second saboteur. What's it costing you? And then what if you could reclaim the strengths that lead to that saboteur? And I think I have another handout on each of the strengths. Let me go look.
So, Nicole, why don't you share with us either what are your top 2 saboteurs costing you when it comes to relationships, performance, well-being, or what impact would it have if you could reclaim the underlying strengths, or both?
I think so. My top 2 saboteurs are hypervigilant and restless, which has shifted from when I originally did this program. Restless is new on my top 2, and stickler has dropped down to number 3. But I think both of them, what it's costing me is presence. I'm more worried about what's gonna happen. I'm worried about what is happening that is not fun anymore. Or, I'm looking for that next, next thing. And so I think it is presence. And I think, if I was to reclaim that, it would definitely improve my relationship, especially with my kids. All they want is my attention. They're yelling right now, mom, mom, mom. All they want is my attention. And, to be able to give them that presence, I think would be huge.
There was exhibit A.
Exactly.
Oops. All right, cool. And I posted in the chat some of the strengths except for the spelling. Oh, that's just going to piss me off, but that's all right. So reclaiming presence and availability and connection. Very cool. And Vitala 3, because that's what came out in the chat.
Vitala 3, yes.
It's bugging me that I can't change it, but every time I go to change it, I can't see it. Okay. So it is what it is.
Justin, what are your top saboteurs costing you, or?
Yeah, my top 2 are dead even, same number, but I'll go with the victim because that's my top Enneagram type. It costs me the unconscious impulse to feel happiness in any given challenging situation. I'll immediately feel like, oh God, I got to deal with this. Or, oh God, why me? Why do I have to deal with this? That kind of thing.
Like an unfairness?
And unfairness. Yeah. And then most of all, it costs me self-confidence overall, always has. So noticing that in the moment, like I did this last week, was really great. I was able to catch it and reverse it, stay on top of it. I was never able to catch that very often back in the day, and it cost me a lot of sadness, depression, and which stuck for the rest of the day. This gives me a way to pull out of that.
I like that. What would the impact be if you could reclaim the strengths of that, the sensitivity, or
Deep emotion.
I'm not sure about this one. I mean, well, I guess what I just said, I would have more self-confidence. I'd feel more capable. If those impulses didn't completely come in. What is it, Theresa?
I just had this thought. It was a great picture too. It was if someone who had a victim saboteur was able to feel those deep emotions about self without judgment.
Yeah.
Removing the it's bad that I feel bad, just a noticing, like introspectively, like, wow, boy, this is a lot. I'm processing a lot without any bad judgment. That felt really good.
I got to tell you, that is what happened this week.
Wow.
I was depressed most of the time when I was living in New York, and because I think a lot of these things would pile on me during the day. I'd feel victimized by everything. But I noticed it never got that deep when these things would happen this week, and I did catch it, and it was almost instantaneously. I was able to feel capable because I caught it. So little celebration things. I didn't do that, but in here I did. I should have done that. I got to get better about that. But yeah, I've come a long way, and this difficult week, it was a lot of fun, but there were some challenges. It really showed me how far I've come, and how many times subconsciously I do conquer these things. I mean, I'm not, a sage, but I come a long way, and it's important to see that
I
and
think you're
take it.
pretty safe.
Thank you. I'll take it, put it inside.
Right. And we are all sages. We are not our saboteurs. We are our sage, is who our true essence is. And I see you constantly in the higher realms of that for energy, the victim energy. Like, it's not listed here, but creativity. You're extremely creative, artistic,
Empathetic.
yeah,
I'm pathetic.
empathetic.
I know.
Empathetic.
I
Like,
know.
and even in your characters, even in your graphic novel characters,
Yeah.
they have they say some amazing stuff, and they're really empathetic. Like, I would absolutely agree with Rick on that. And the idea of having deep feels without making it bad or wrong, just like I'm having deep feelings. All right.
Yeah, that's been huge. Which you just having the feels and not judging it, not letting it overpower me or rain on me. It's
Mm-mm.
been really good. That's why I keep coming back, y'all.
Keep coming back.
Hey,
The cat came back.
thank you. Thank you, Justin. Dawn, tell us about what your saboteurs are costing you and what it would be like to focus more on those underlying strengths.
So I think Justin kind of said inadvertently that like question one kind of answers question two, right? For me anyway. But my top two saboteurs haven't changed. However, one of them went down a little bit. Mine was avoider and pleaser. So I'm glad I got one down a little bit. The problem is some other stuff got higher. So, but for me, I wrote down some notes. Internal peace, like Let you know, even though I'm a avoider and a pleaser, like empathy for others kind of falls in there too somehow, and I don't quite understand how yet. But and then this anxiety or this anxious feeling when I avoid or try to please or not like speak my mind, right? Like or avoid telling somebody something about it, right? I got this anxiety feeling or anxious feeling. So being able to recognize saboteurs and act upon them in a healthy way will get my question too. And then trying to stay out of negativity, even the slightest things for me, I've noticed, not necessarily with avoid or pleaser thing, but with the like this positive program's trying to keep you in the positivity all the time. I get that, but I don't know where I'm going with this, but I've just in this last week or two been called out on a couple little stupid things that I've said, just to other people as a joking thing. And it's like, no, because that's your negativity that's coming within you. And if you can keep that out of your vocabulary, even, then you can stay in the positive sage mind. So I'm working on a bunch of stuff and I'm kind of all over the place right now, but I've got just this crazy note pile going on. So that's good for me anyway. So,
Well, I think it's awesome to recognize that, actually the avoider ruins my inner peace. And the whole lie about the avoider is, oh no, if you don't think about it, it'll be fine. You'll be peaceful. Nope. Like calling that out.
Yeah. If only.
If
If
only.
only we're out of sight, out of mind. That's the lie of the avoider. It's everything I'm avoiding is just sitting there eating it.
And it's all connected, right? If you really dig deep and think about where it's coming from, it's all connected in there. But I'm looking at it in a different way today than I was even this last, 6 months ago or whenever that last one was. So, yeah, I love the way it's, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Don.
Thank you.
Cindy, what are your saboteurs costing you, and what would happen if you reclaim their underlying sage strengths?
So mine, much like Don, and I think you too, Rick, mine are avoider and pleaser, pleaser being the top one. Not a surprise to me. Not a surprise to me at all with that. So what are they costing me? One of the things that hit me hard this past week, actually, is avoiding having some difficult conversations. Partially because of the pleaser in me, but also one of them is going to be a really uncomfortable conversation. And that one's with my best friend who just lost her husband, and she's starting to show some pretty clear signs of dementia. And it's like, ooh, we need to sit down and have some kind of a conversation, I think, because there's nobody else that's going to have it with her. And at any rate, so the more I don't sit down and have that conversation with Betsy, and she was here for Thanksgiving and all of that, the more I get myself amped up about, oh, I don't know that I can do this. Is it really my place to do this? I mean, she'll just figure it out on her own, blah, blah, blah. Well, she's been my best friend for 27 years. Is it fair to her not to at least raise some questions? So, if I could reclaim my strength related to that, a lot. One, I could relax more about it, frankly, because I do. For Michael and I both, we worry about her a lot with those circumstances. And if we had a better handle on what's going on, or at least had some strategies that she could come up with that we could support her on, then we'd feel better about it. So that's the one that really hit me as we were going through these.
Cindy, I want to ask, so there's a whole construct around being ruthlessly heart-centered, having
Hmm.
activating and difficult conversations with ruthless love
Yeah.
for someone else. And because you love them. And I think that oftentimes we will avoid those conversations thinking, but it is a loving conversation and it's ruthlessly like protecting um, your heart and their heart and helping, offering to help them and support them.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you.
And that's just a
Yeah.
construct. That's just an
No,
idea
no, no, no,
of
I
how you
love
go
it.
into it.
Yeah, I haven't called it ruthless love with that, but have had other terms applied to it. And absolutely believe in it, that if you truly care about somebody, then yes, it's the right thing to do. That's how I answer my own question about, is it my place to do it? Well, yes, of course it is. Oh, yes, of course it is. She's been my best friend for 27 years.
Yeah, you
Of
mentioned that.
course it is.
And you're seeing this. There's a reason you're seeing this, and to ruthlessly honor that relationship, right? And ruthless is a
Absolutely.
weird word to hear in it, but once you hear it, you kind of get it as a pleaser. It's like, oh, huh.
Yeah, it would be just flat out wrong not to have that conversation in my mind.
You could.
So at any rate, that's one that I've been
Yeah.
toying with, and being mindful of time. I'll kind of leave it right there. So
Thanks for sharing.
Just one more thought on that, Cindy, was that avoiding difficult conversations costs you connection.
exactly.
You're spinning in
That's
your
just
head.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's so much more to it, but again, I won't get into it because of time here today. But yeah,
thank you, Cindy.
thank you.
Denny, what are your saboteurs costing you? What would be the impact of reclaiming your strengths?
I would be more empowered as I avoid. I lose my sense of power, my locus of control being inside me. It's like I kind of give myself up when I don't step forward and risk. But the risk feels, it's like in one of those places where is the risk really worth it? And, when you're avoiding, that's the question so often is it really worth it? I mean, how much do I really want to give in this relationship? Do I really care enough? Do I care enough to give blood? Because that's what the avoider comes down to for me. When I take on one of those, that means I'm willing to go all the way and to see it to the end. And maybe that's too much. Maybe that's the old stickler coming up and the old judge hanging on to it, that I have to do it to the very end. Maybe I just have to start. But that's the one. How much do I want? How much do I have to give? How much do I even want to give? Do I even give a damn about this person? Who cares? Go do your own thing. Go walk in traffic like I don't care. I really don't have it to give. I am not going to stop you. You just do your thing. I'll just avoid telling you there's a car there and you can get hit. Go right ahead. That's kind of like, that's the avoider for me. Do I? So it's more than, for me, it's kind of a deep taking a look at how far I want to go with some people. Some people, I just let them do their own thing.
So I wonder if what would help you is, instead of the pleaser first step, which is, or step is what's the first step I could take?
Yeah.
I mean, the avoider and not avoiding this. Use the pleaser first step. What do I need to do to take care of me in
Take
this
care of me.
situation?
What do I really want?
Yes, that's a much better question for me
Mhm.
in dealing with the avoider
Yeah.
than just taking it on as, oh, look, you're what what do I need to do here? Some things it's okay to avoid them.
Right.
They're never going to listen to you anyway. It doesn't matter what you say. You can talk for 100 million years, and so what? So those people have to have the reality of their experience.
Denny, it's only a teachable moment if somebody wants to be taught.
You got it, girl. That's it exactly. And sometimes when I avoid, it's for a damn good reason. I just don't want to give it that much energy. Reality is, there are times I don't feel that much love. And that's what it takes. To move into handling those things requires great love. It's just, I think you said it, Theresa. You know that. And if you don't have that, for me, then I don't have the fuel to motivate me. Don't want to get in there. Don't. It's and that's my number one is the avoider. So you can see I've got a lot going on with this avoider. It's a big teacher for me. And I think that that's the best way for me to look at the avoider is as this has got something here big to teach me.
Mm-hmm. That's true of all these saboteurs.
And being wanting to risk. And it is always a risk with the avoider. And yet I learned many, many years ago the importance of risking. Because as you risk, you begin to build more strength to be able to risk the next time. So I'm not really sure why I'm stuck here, but it's a brand new thing to avoid.
It'll be an interesting week.
It will be.
Exploring more into avoider, pleaser, try some of the other sage steps for the other elements, rather than just the avoider one. If the avoider one doesn't work, what's the first step I could take?
Excellent.
Because I like your avoider is different than my avoider. My avoider is to maintain the peace kind of thing, and it's different energy about it than it's like you've got the type 2 Enneagram avoider. A little different flavor.
Yeah, a little different flavor. Yeah.
I love it. All right. Thank you, Penny. Tracy, what are your saboteurs costing you, and what would embracing their gifts do?
Well, my pleaser and avoider are still top of the list, but restless came up there at the exact same level. So I'm working on restless, and I'm going to work on my fourth one, which is hypervigilant, which is the same as Nicole's. So my answers are very similar to hers, that I'm costing living in the moment, which is the same answer I had of what is the judge costing me, is living in the moment. So I think it all ties in for me. And what can my strengths do is be more present for my children, maybe be happy, be more fun, more playful, kind of in that theme. And maybe looking at my relationship with my husband differently. That's also being more present, not being hyper vigilant. So really looking at the true risks versus the what else is this going to happen, you know? So yeah, those two things, being present and looking at my relationships differently.
Love it. Love it. David, what are your saboteurs costing you?
Top saboteurs, restless and avoider. And it all boils down to is costing me peace and a feeling of home and belonging. Always, zooming on the move, and there's got to be something better. And I still think, actually, candidly, that still my grief still ties into this from losing Joy 4 years ago, because I'm still seeking and looking for that relationship I have. And so my concept is strictly down to relationships, and the impact of reclaiming it would be the ability to fall in love again.
Mm.
That's what my quest is.
All right. Thank you so much, David. Thank you, everybody, for all your shares. This made this really cool. I hope you're enjoying this as much as Theresa and I are. And next week, we move into Sage. And this time we start with empathize power. You know, they changed it up. We're not doing the Sage perspective for another week. So it's going to be empathize, which means bring your childhood photos with you next time.
Oh, my.
Dig those up. We'll play around with those. All right. So see everyone back here. That's in the Sage Pod in 23 minutes. Time to go use the restroom, take a break.
Yeah.
All right, biology kids, everybody go do your biology. We'll see you in a little while.